Remington Podcast, where we take a deep dive into all things ammunition. I'm your host, Audrey Mays, and today I'm joined by Head of Research and Development, John Langenfeld.
We're here again.
And Director of Centerfire Products, Chris Carson.
They let me back.
We are, at least I am, thinking about hunting season already. It's only June. Yeah, it's only June.
It's June.
And fall's already on the brain. So I wanted to have a quick discussion with you guys about how you get ready during this time of year for fall. Because I think it's important.
Well, right now I'm not doing a whole lot because it's hot.
Right.
But, I am thinking about what I'm going to use, what rifles I'm going to use, and making sure that I've got everything in order, whenever I get ready to do some shooting, which will probably be maybe August. And I think a lot of it depends on when you're going to go, because my hunt that I'm going on this year is not till late November. And so I've got a little bit more time than maybe what you've got. When are you going to Kansas?
I won't go till the regular season, which is first Wednesday in December, but we'll do youth season in September.
Okay.
So we'll start getting ready here sooner than
Children's.
later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you help them get their rifle ready too?
Yes, but do we have two boots? Do we have a backpack?
Yeah.
Do we have no snacks?
The right ammo?
Do we have the right shells?
Yeah.
There's a lot of ancillary boxes to check when you're making sure all your kids' stuff is there, because the last thing you want to do is get somewhere and, we forgot.
The ammo.
Yeah, we haven't done that. Well, maybe we did once, but this time of year, for me, it's okay if we're doing a youth hunt somewhere, let's make sure they're ready.
And I guess all their clothes fit. I mean, kids grow up pretty fast.
That's
So,
the other thing.
Sure.
Do we have something older brother can pass down, or do we need to go get something? But as far as getting youth ready, especially a younger kid that's maybe not shot a rifle a lot, you want a little more trigger time just to work out any kinks that you
build
may
some
see.
confidence.
Because I've seen that happen, jerks and flinches, and okay, let's make sure we're checking the boxes of how we go through a process and not miss.
Yeah. So, John, you said that you don't. I mean, right now it is really
just
hot.
right now.
But
If I were going on a hunt soon,
yes, thank you.
one, I'm going to check my equipment, my gear, and if we're primarily talking your rifle, I'm going to go through. I'm going to make sure all the screws are tight. I'm going to make sure that they're at the right torque settings. My action screws, my scope cap screws. If I've got ones that are have bases, and then everything. Usually there's a little Loctite on base screws and things like that. But I'm just going to make sure that everything's tight. And I don't want to get to the range. I've seen everything. You go to the range and you shoot, and there'll be people there, and they're trying to sight their guns in, and they can't hit. They can't hit anything, or it looks like a shotgun pattern. And it'll be just it's kind of like that process of elimination.
Yeah.
The screws aren't tight, things like that. And it's all like I thought they were. So before you even go shoot, if your rifle's been sitting around, or who knows what you've been doing with it, or how long it's been since you shot it, just check it. Make sure things are tight. Make sure
Your gun's clean.
Well, and that's a relative term. If it's squeaky clean, no carbon, no copper, no nothing, you're going to need to file it up a little bit probably. But and I think a lot of it just depends on what you're going to do. As far as, I think regardless, you always check, make sure your equipment's in good working order and all the screws are tight and everything. But from there, if you're going to shoot, on a stand 50 yards or something, so the level of testing that you do to validate everything is still where you want it at versus, say you're comfortable, or the equipment that you have and your ability allows you to shoot much further.
Right.
Then, making sure that all that stuff is still the same, making sure your trajectory, your scope's still tracking correctly and all that kind of stuff. So, for me, I probably take it overboard just because I don't want to ever be.
We're very surprised by that.
I don't want to ever be in the situation to where, because I didn't prepare for that opportunity when I squeeze the trigger, that I know that bullet's going to go where I want it to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like John, you prep pretty hardcore. I mean, even when you go on your elk hunt, you took 2 rifles. I've never taken a backup rifle on a hunt before. Have you?
No.
Yeah. So.
Well,
don't like that.
Took a backup bow, but that's different.
I think that's completely different.
I'm doing about 3% of what he's doing on
on
turning
prepping.
knobs.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all right. We got bullets. We got some rim oil. Let's, we want to check the boxes that everything works. I'm making sure things are tight. Absolutely.
Sure.
But his prep is probably significantly more detailed than mine is at the.
I mean, John, you're going to Colorado for an elk hunt this year,
I am.
right? And so, I mean, you've gone a couple times, but it's kind of a big deal.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, every time it's a big deal.
Right.
Not only just because I put a lot of pressure on myself to perform in the equipment and everything, but the worst case scenario would be that you get out there and something goes wrong and you wound an animal. Mm-hmm. And so I don't want that to happen either. And so yeah, equipment's a piece of it. Knowing what your load is, what it's going to do. On the bench type work. And then after that, you need to practice.
Yeah.
Shoot in field positions, shoot over backpacks, shoot over tripod sticks, lean against the pole at the range, practice working the gun. And, not only do you get more comfortable with it, but you're also continuing to kind of test that gun. Last year I had done all this prep work and a scope.
Went out of zero, right?
The weekend before I was leaving. I think I was leaving on like a Wednesday, and on Sunday things went haywire. And so, I've made changes to that. That shouldn't happen this year. But regardless, I don't just shoot 2 times and say, okay, I hit a pipe plate and I'm good to go. The application.
What's wrong with that?
Well, it depends on what you're doing. Depends on what you're doing. If you have done that for 20 years and it works and your gun stays zero and you kill deer every year, there's nothing wrong with it. But for me, I want to hit more than a pipe plate.
Yeah, I think it's situational though too.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're middle America deer hunting out of a stand, I'm a 100-yard shooter. I'm comfortable. I'm not taking anything farther than that. I'm going to shoot my gun 3 times. That's okay. You at least shot it. You shot it.
You've done your due diligence.
You shot it.
Yeah.
95% of people aren't going to be out, on an elevated situation where they're, shooting off of a ledge or something like that. So that's where you have to change your approach, I think, But most people aren't doing that every year. I mean, they might do it once a lifetime or once every 10 years. But that's when you have to, okay, I can't just go do my pipe plate shooting or my 3-shot group at 100 if I'm going to be in a situation where have to shoot further than I've ever shot before. Because the last thing a guide wants to see is, okay, wait, what are you shooting? Okay, you check the box. That's appropriate caliber. What's the farthest you've ever shot? And I can shoot 100. Well,
we're not getting you that
Arkansas
close
anymore.
Yeah.
If you're out west, if you're at 100, something's gotten extremely lucky, or it doesn't always work out that way. Sure. So, and you're not shooting out of a stand, and you're nothing's level. So, the prep goes to a different level based on what you're doing.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. I mean, John, what distance are you thinking you're going to be shooting at this elk? Fourth rifle, right, is when you're going? Yeah,
I'm going 4th rifle. So the rifle that I'm going to take this year, I'll probably shoot it out to maybe like 550, 600 yards. I don't want to have to shoot that far, but I will shoot the rifle out that far, doping it with trajectory and everything like that. And then, ideally they're 300 or less. Yeah. I want to get as close as I can. But at the same time, shooting the longer ranges is only going to improve my ability to shoot shorter ranges too. And so I'll have shot it out that far.
What are you going to zero at is my next question. Some people zero at 100, 200. So
depends on the rifle.
Yeah.
Size of game, things like that. So I think it's situational as well in application. So I'll probably sight this rifle in at 250 yards, and then I wouldn't need to touch a turret till probably beyond 350, because I'll kind of know, like I said, looking at the numbers and knowing what I need to hold over, and that's time oriented. It's quick. I don't want to have something and it's a 300-yard shot, and you're going, well, what do I need to do? And I got to turn my turret. It's just shoot him.
Right.
Know your gun, know your numbers.
Know your equipment.
Whether you're taping it on the side of your gun or
riding it on the back of your hand.
Using a shooting glove, the John Langenfeld shooting glove.
It works.
Is that what you have?
No.
We're working on it.
Okay. I was like, wow, am I missing something? So Chris, are you the 100-yard shooter, or like do you usually go to 200? What is your usual? Because I know you're going to hunt
I'm
Kansas.
more of a 25 to 50 kind of guy.
50 yards,
no,
yeah.
I mean,
they'll walk right up on you because you're so good.
No, yeah. So Kansas is wide open, but
Yep.
it's flatter than if you go further west.
Sure.
But I mean, I shot a deer last year. He was 270.
Okay.
So, one click sighting in at 200, fast and flat. I'm putting together a new rifle this year. John's my custom rifle builder.
Everybody's in the factory.
So we've got the action, stocks coming, barrels coming. Got to get all the other Legos to put it on for caliber that we're, coming out with. But since that's a new gun, I would shoot it more than a gun I have that I'm comfortable with, just because it's a whole new platform. So, we got to mount scopes. We got to, we're starting from the beginning. Right. So, I would shoot that more than I would something that I shot a deer with last year. If I was using that rifle, okay, let's go shoot a box at different distances, making sure everything is where I want it to be. Wipe it off and put it back.
He's looking at John like, is this what I'm supposed to do, John?
Our cleaning practices are a little different. Time to conduct those cleaning is much shorter for me. But you got to get comfortable with whatever gun you're using. So since that's a new gun that we'll have, I'm not using that till December. So I've got time. I'll have all the parts by the end of the summer. And then, testing new bullets, find what works and go from there.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the things that most of the hunting that I do is with different rifles.
Okay.
I mean, over and over, they're different loads, different rifles or optics and things like that. I don't know that I've consecutively used one gun where I haven't either had a different scope on it, or I'm shooting a new load, or it's not my rifle, things like that, or it's my rifles, but I have various ones that I don't use the same one over and over.
Yeah,
is why I would go through almost like he just talked about, kind of that start from scratch, to where if I had one that I used all the time, set up with the same scope and the same load and everything, then no, I wouldn't. I would be like you. I would shoot it a few times, and you're getting that confidence every year and every time you use it. But I would absolutely take it out, check my zero, take a couple shots, at 100. And then if you're going to shoot longer range, do that as well. If you're going to dial it, make sure everything's coming back, stretch the springs out on it and, take it out to 400 or 500 or whatever, and then bring it back. And then I'd probably call it good with that platform.
Sure.
But I think that, the best thing that anybody can probably do is just practice, regardless if it's with that rifle or, even if it's just shooting a 22, to get rid of a flinch or anything, and trigger control and squeeze and breathing and in field positions,
right.
Get off the bench. And that's really where things are going to start to shine, of your ability of how you can get steady and whatnot. And I remember when I went on my first big game hunt, I went to New Mexico when I was 18 years old, had a 300 Weatherby Magnum. I got everything sighted in, and I was trying to practice off of a sitting bipod. And I would put targets out at various ranges, and there was a big difference between when I started to practice at the beginning of that summer, and this was an August hunt, so I was shooting through the summer in the hot months, and I don't usually like to do that because it takes forever for your rifle barrel to cool down. But by the end of the summer, my confidence level to shoot off of that sitting bipod was, in my ability, was so much better than, because I was doing different things, and how you get on your knees and where you're going to put your feet, and you're experimenting. It's not just like, oh yeah, I'm just going to sit down and shoot.
Right.
But for me, I want to know exactly what I'm going to do in that situation, and how my legs are going to go, where my elbows are going to go, if I'm going to have my hand up on the rifle, if it's going to be on the leg, things like that, so that I just do it. And I know that's the best situation for me. And so just practice. Just get out and practice with whether it's the rifle or something, and that you maybe don't want to burn the barrel out on one of your nice rifles, but get something that's close and or cheaper ammo or something. But shoot.
Yeah.
One thing you said that some people may not think a lot about is barrel cooling, because I've watched people, and you probably have too, that shoot 5 times, shoot 10 times, and oh, my gun's it was on, but now it's not, and creates frustration. Well, barrel contact with a stock or just expansion, you can walk, bullets around, and then you're getting frustrated. So
get a little nervous.
Cooling is appropriate.
Accuracy changes.
Yeah.
It can change depending on the
Sure.
contour of the barrel. If it's like you said, if it's fully bedded, or if it's not bedded but just in contact with the stock, as that changes. And so, make sure that you cool your barrels right. 2-3 shots on a sporter weight barrels, especially on a Magnum or something, they're going to heat up. Don't get them so hot that you're going to burn your hand on them.
Sure.
Have good sandbags to get on the bench. Don't put them on hard surfaces and all that kind of stuff. And if you're not familiar with what to do, if you go to your ranges and stuff, there's usually somebody around. Look for that guy. It's like, I think they look like they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Just ask some questions.
Unless sometimes when I was in Colorado and I would take my rifles out there all the time, it was a public land range. So there's no RSO, right? So there's no one there to help you, but tons of ranges that are, even if you can pay a day fee and go to a private range, there's people there that can help you.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The barrel heating thing, I've definitely done that with my 4570. I was shooting it and just racking and shooting again. And that's not how you're going to use it. You need to practice like you play, right? And so getting in those different positions, like prone position, even in a blind, you're shooting off of a ledge that's like this thin. If you're sitting in a box blind, which is what I sit in, you'd have to, you have to figure out where to put your hand to hold your barrel and all that. So I think tripod. Was that what you do?
Yeah, it makes a huge difference.
Really? I've never even tried that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Absolutely.
Shoot, I might have to do that this year.
Yeah, but you want to practice off of one. You don't want to just get in there and this is the first time I'm using it. Because you're going to borrow a gun, I'm assuming, for your New Mexico. Or where are you going? Texas.
Yep.
So shoot it.
Yeah.
Whether you're using one of the guns here or it's coming from a manufacturer, you want to shoot it.
Yeah. I'm going on a hunt this year in December, so I have time. But
and that won't be in a blind. So
right.
You need to shoot standing up. You need to shoot out of, off of a window ledge kind of situation or whatever.
Yeah. And I'm, not shooting my trusty 270. I shot the 270 since I was 12 years old. So it's going to be really different for me.
In Texas last year, I was on the gun for 45 minutes watching a deer.
Really?
So in the worst
position you could possibly be in.
Contorted thing, so how do you prepare for that? You don't. But the gun's still got to
perform.
Be ready.
Yeah.
Just shoot.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. Shooting a rifle I've never shot before, with a round that I've never shot before, in a place that I've never hunted a mule deer before. It's going to be really interesting.
We've had riders, and I don't know if you've seen it too, but we'll send guns to people sometimes.
Right.
And when you get to camp, you can tell who shot before you got there, and the other ones that are like, and then you're like, oh no.
Right.
Well, we got to start at the beginning here. And even twisting dials. I saw somebody have dial problems last year just because they didn't know what they weren't comfortable with the gun. So if you're picking up a new gun, it might work out for you, but it's just good to know what you're doing.
That's another thing. The scope on my 270 is fixed. So if the scope on this new rifle isn't going to be fixed, I'm going to have to figure out how to use.
What do you mean fixed?
Like there's no
dial.
There's no dial.
Well, you don't have to dial. Even if the scope that ends up on the rifle for this fall has a dial on it, you don't have to use it.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's true.
Just sight it in and then know your holdovers, or the reticle may have some holdovers in it, for distance. But, I wouldn't overcomplicate the situation just because it has dials on it.
Still just a scope. You just got to...
It'll work just like the one you have.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
I'm not super nervous. Like I said, I have time to figure it out. And I have used what I'm going to say is like nicer rifles before. So it's okay. I don't need to use like my very, meat and potatoes 270 to shoot something effectively. But it's going to be fun.
Bougie rifle.
It's going to be bougie. There you go. That's what I was looking for.
Okay.
You said, John, that when you know, go to the range, even if you're not shooting the gun that you're going to hunt with, you should, and you need, more cost effective ammunition. Should you shoot ammunition that's as close as you can get to the ammunition that you're going to be shooting hunting?
Not necessarily. I think that you absolutely need to know what the load is going to do that you're going to hunt with. Its level of precision, what its trajectory is, especially if you're going to dial. And then you can basically, write that down in your notes or whatever and say, okay, that's my hunting load. This is where I'm going to zero it. This is my drop at my distances. And then if you've got time and you don't want to shoot, let's say that's more expensive and you want to shoot something that's more cost effective for practice because you're going to consume a larger quantity, that's not going to hurt anything. You might have to re-zero and change depending on what type of load it is. A lot of times I'll shoot a different rifle. If I'm just working on mechanics and trigger squeeze and things like that, and I want to shoot off a tripod or I want to shoot off sticks or different things, to me in that situation, I'm not worried about knowing the platform or the system and making sure it's good. I'm working on my skills. And so having something that's a similar recoil level would be good. At least shooting something of a similar recoil because, you don't want to go out and just shoot a 22 forever and then all of a sudden you have something that's more recoil and you just can't deal with it or whatever. So
it's going to affect you. Difference in
you
recoil.
need to be able to know recoil limits if that's part of it. But so to the original question, you don't necessarily have to shoot the ammo that you're going to hunt with to practice, but do know that there's going to be a difference more than likely in that trajectory and precision and things like that, your accuracy. So know what it does. Down select what you're going to hunt with, and then if you want to practice with something cheaper, that's fine. Just know that you need to go back and readjust your scope or whatever it may be. So
no matter what, you need to fire a couple rounds of the ammo you're going to shoot with in the gun you're going to shoot it with before you go on the hunt.
I would, yeah. And I've got there's one friend of mine that he's got a couple rifles that he's shot the same loads in for probably 20 years, and they never change. The zero never shifts. But he still shoots them a little bit every once in a while, and he would absolutely shoot them before he would go on a big game hunt. And even so, you get to the spot where you're going to hunt, you fly, you drive, whatever, pull the guns out. I would still shoot them, even though you're 100% confident, this rifle hasn't changed in 20 years. I'd still shoot it, put 2 shots on the paper just to be sure. I do that. It makes me feel good, so that I know that I don't want to miss or have something go wrong and then go check my scope and say, well, I didn't shoot it, but when I got here and I should have. Now, if some things you can't help if something happens between then and there, but I'll at least know that I've done everything that I can do to make sure it's going to go right.
Yeah. I am, like I was telling you guys earlier, I always send 3 rounds through my 270. I've never had to change the zero, not once, since I was 12 years old. So I'm kind of proud of that.
When it sits in the closet, it doesn't get banged around.
That's true. I mean, it comes out for deer season, goes back in, comes out, goes back in.
Yep.
So, and it works because I'm not shooting over 200 yards. So, when you go to the range to do these prep work, what does your range gear look like? What are you exactly going to use? Especially, this is for people who are either shooting with a new rifle this year and have never had to do this prep work, or they're new to deer hunting and they're like, I'm going to shoot at 400 yards this year. I've never done that. What should their gear list look like for the range?
Well, I mean, in my range bag, I got my normal PPE, like eyes and ears, things like that. I usually take some type of a chronograph when I go, even though I already know, let's just say my load's developed and I'm just doing normal stuff. I still chronograph stuff just to see, because it's easy to set up. I use one of the new small radars, and so it's just easy to put it on the bench and collect some data while I'm there. And then from there, I've got some almost like that camera tripod there that's got a cradle head on it. I'll shoot some stuff off of that, whether I'm sitting, kneeling, standing, just different positions. I use a variety of targets and sizes of targets. Some things are, maybe just shoot and see stuff if you're going to shoot at distance and you don't have a spotting scope, and you want to be able to see them through your scope, see where you're hitting. Those are really good to do that. And I've used like the silhouette type animal print targets before. You know, they'll have like heart and lung and stuff like that. I'll use that to be more realistic about, what's the kill zone look like? And I know when I talked about that antelope hunt that I went on, I had one of the 3D deer targets, archery targets. That thing was so hard to get arrows out of. I just started shooting it with a rifle. I did. I took it out and I would take a white piece of paper and I would use it because it had the vital area. And I would just staple that to the vital area, and I'd shoot that because it was relative to the size of an antelope. Yeah, and so it didn't blow it up or anything, but that was what I used to practice to visualize. I've got those targets that, but when I went to Africa back in 2015, that have the flip side. It's got vitals on one side, like almost like a cutaway, and then the other side's not, and it's scaled, and so for different species, so knowing where the anatomy.
Yeah. Of your animal.
Yeah, for the most part, they're pretty well the same, but there may be some things where the heart and lungs lie in a slightly different place. So,
bear versus deer, different.
Variety of targets. What you're going to shoot off of. Take your backpack, stuff it full of something. Whether it's a pillow or whatever. So it's kind of representative of some you have in your coat and all that kind of stuff in there.
His range bag is the whole bed of his truck.
I was going to say, Chris, what does your range bag look like?
I've got I'll have a bag and then something I can raise the elevation on the gun on the front, just shooting off benches. Cause I've got 2 boys and we're trying to shoot 3 guns and, it's 100 degrees. So, I'm usually shooting 1-inch grid cardboard with, painted circles. So, we can make adjustments, we'll shoot at 100, 200, 300. That's the limit of what we can shoot at where we're at, and make any adjustments that we need to. So we'll shoot off a stick sometimes, but I'm not traditionally shooting animal targets unless somebody's left one up there and, one of those guys wants to shoot it. But to me, it's okay. Like you, I've never shot a dial scope. I put a dial scope on one of my kids' guns. Okay, let's get comfortable. If we're zeroed at 100, this is what we have to do at 300 or whatever. So we've tinkered with those situations, what he wants to be based on now. So we've changed that for this season. So my youngest, hey, let's just shoot, so you don't want to overload a kid with information either, but what's comfortable for them. As they get older, they'll step into that.
And start to understand why you're doing things. Yeah.
But as far as all of the bags and stuff, you don't have to go spend $500 on stuff. Just you can fill a bag with sand and stitch it up, and you just want your gun to be steady. It's hard to make minute adjustments for something if your gun's wobbling around on the bench anyhow. So, we will fill shot bags with sand and use them here. Shot bags are cheap. It doesn't have to be a shot bag, but you can make your own bags. You don't have to go buy a bunch of stuff, but sturdy is the key. If your bench is rocking around, it's hard to validate what's going on. So something sturdy. You just, whether it's a table that you bring out there or something that's already built. We've built a bench at the house before, out of treated lumber, and it's sturdy. It works. So just, if you're trying to shoot for accuracy and adjust your gun, you're going to get frustrated if your gun's not stable.
Yeah, definitely. And like me, going out to that public range and stuff, it was a good way to practice for hunting elk on public land because you're not sitting in a blind, right? So I think figuring out seated positions on the dirt ground is important too, if that's what you're going to be doing. Yeah. So I think really the key takeaway here is practice how you play.
Yeah. The bench work is about the system. It's not about your shooting ability. Once you get it sighted in, once you get your load figured out, and everything's done, then get it off the bench and then practice.
Yeah. Make sure your tools are all where they need to be, and then start doing more difficult stuff.
And, all the stuff that I've read before I started big game hunting, you read about the books where people do, surveys with outfitters and guides and professional hunters in Africa, and they usually say what are the number one things that you wish a client would do better, or things like that. And it's usually their ability to get a shot off quickly, and then their proficiency with their equipment. And so I think the more that you can prepare for that opportunity, to get steady, get quick, and get an accurate shot off. You're just stacking the odds in your favor, whether it's sitting, in your back 40 hunting whitetail or going on some big game hunt. Just be prepared.
Yeah. And like you said, I think one of the best things that you can do to prepare for a hunt, even if it's not with the rifle you're going to hunt with, is just
shoot.
Get behind a rifle.
Yeah, just shoot.
Yeah, just shoot.
Yep.
I mean, UMC loads, they're not hard on the wallet. I mean, you can buy a lot of them at a time, and the recoil's the same, or not the same, but it's similar if you're shooting a similar caliber to what you're going to shoot out in a hunt. So,
yeah. And when things don't go right for Chris, he calls me. So,
right. So call Lang, call John if you need anything.
He needs what's in my truck bed.
Yeah. I mean, like, the chronograph is important, especially if you're going to shoot your own wildcats.
Well, most of the ammo that I'm shooting in my own tinkering, I've loaded.
Right.
But even if not, it's just still good. I'm looking at, the consistency, the standard deviations, where is it at? Because if I'm going to dial a scope, I need to know how fast it's going.
Yeah.
So
engineer talk. So
yeah. Liaison that
regular
for us.
talk.
Yeah.
If you're buying a dial or your scope has dials,
Yeah.
you can't necessarily go on the ballistics on the box. Because, when we make ammo, we're making it based on a test barrel length.
Right.
Your gun barrel could be 26, 24, 22, 18. So these little pocket chronographs are really cool. It'll show you the ballistics, your velocity at the table, that you can then in turn call the dial people if it's a custom dial or make adjustments. It's a much better way than just relying on what's in a catalog on the internet as far as velocities, because that's true. And, when you're mounting your scope, measure the distance from the center line to the center line of the rifle. Don't just, because all those key features or data points affect your accuracy. So we may put, 3,200 feet per second on the box for a load, but you've got a 26-inch rifle. You're picking up 60 feet per second, or you're shooting a 20. You've lost 80 feet or 100. Your ballistics aren't going to be what's on the box if you're not shooting what we're shooting. So your dial would be slightly modified. So don't get frustrated if, I put in what was on the box and I'm 2 inches lower. Well, wait a minute. That's not the real ballistics. So they're still not cheap. They're still a few $100s, but they're good. They're neat tools to have. And you shoot, and then your buddies go, "Oh, what's that?" And you're shooting that, and then they want to shoot theirs, and I didn't know that's what mine really shot. So they're great.
If you don't have that, then just shoot it.
Yeah.
Right.
Just zero it in at the distance you want to zero it in, then go put a target up. If I have a 200-yard zero, put a target up at 300 yards, and
see where the drop's at.
Either dial what you think you need to, or don't dial and measure and see what the drop is, and then create your own chart if you don't have a chronograph.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really important, Chris. I mean, we've said it here on the podcast a lot. Every gun is going to handle every kind of ammunition differently. So, we obviously test our ammunition a lot before we put it out into the public, but we do test it under controlled environments. So,
it's
and we take away variables.
There's differences, like Chris was saying, primarily in barrel lengths, and especially today with individuals wanting to go shorter and shorter barrels, run suppressors and things like that. And, we quote all of our numbers out of SAMI length UR barrels. And so whether it's 26, 28, 30, or down to 20 or whatever. So that's why I take that kind of stuff to the range. It's easy. And, I've got my data right there to see what it is. And I can turn turrets or, whatever. Yeah. But yeah.
So we did get two kind of like opposite ends of the spectrum here when we're talking about prep. We got like Chris.
I'm the everyday man.
He's the everyday man. And we got John, who's like maybe a little extra.
I've got a notebook on every rifle.
On an individual notebook?
On every rifle. Last time it was shot, how many rounds is on the barrel, what loads it shoots good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
just take a picture of your data and look at your phone.
That's why he calls me.
That is true. We all call John Langenfeld. I will be calling John Langenfeld when I get my rifle in for my December. So, we'll get
it set up.
Yeah, it's positive. So
just shoot it.
just shoot it is the answer. Just go out and shoot your rifle, guys. That's the.
Don't call us from Texas whining. I missed.
I'm not sighted in.
Yeah, I don't know. Scope's too high.
Where's the safety on this?
Yeah. Don't do that.
So I'll just shake my head.
Yeah.
You were in this podcast.
We told you. Well,
No excuses.
hit rewind.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being here, guys. I think that was really helpful to a lot of people. So there you have it, guys. Remington is on the rise. Like, comment, subscribe, and be sure to share this podcast with your hunting or shooting buddies. If you have any questions for me or John and Chris here, you can email us at podcast@remington.com. Thanks for listening.